Move right on to conduct of business. Item 10. 10A is adopt a resolution approving the installation of red curb striping for the San Bruno grade separation project along eastbound Walnut Street, along southbound San Mateo Avenue, and at the southern intersection of San Mateo Avenue and Huntington Avenues.
Honorable Mayor, Council members, the intent of the presentation tonight really to give you a general overview of all of the traffic-related issue around the grade separation project before the start of operation of the new station on April 1st. And you had in front of you a very very detailed staff report with all of the technical details necessary to justify all of the proposed changes around the project at the interface between the project and city infrastructure, city streets. I will present in a summary fashion what will be the recommendation for you, what action you should take tonight, what specific action will be needed from during further action needed. And also, I will give you a summary of the items which will need to be monitored or only for information purposes only. Staff really recognized the challenges what you had to face during the development of this project through so many changes in the parking situation around the project. I just want to share with you that the main reason for those changes really was the only purpose that staff was working very closely with JPB to make sure that the impact of the project on the businesses and on the residents around the project will be minimized as much as possible. And I will let Rafael Bolon, the project manager for the project, to take you through and to explain in detail what the changes are since last September when he had his last presentation on this subject for the project.
Thank you, Clara. So as Clara mentioned, I did present in September 2013 these numbers right here, which were at the time the total parking losses that were anticipated as part of the project. Since then, we've been working very closely with the city staff to, as Clara mentioned, minimize where possible the need to remove parking and, if required, to offset those losses using additional parking in other locations so that the net loss would be reduced. So 2 columns here I'd like to draw your attention to tonight. The first refers to what the council saw September 2013. That's kind of the cut to the chase summary table. The second one is the spots lost on the far right side. That's, as of today, that's the final parking. So it has changed slightly, as you can see in some locations, and I'll walk through exactly what that is. One final note at the bottom, there's a note, we're still working with the city in terms of if we can secure a short to medium term lease for the temp station parking, what was the temp station, then we can offset and more than offset some of these parking losses. So I'm going to go street by street and sort of focus on the numbers you see up top are the net losses. So it adds in some places, subtracts in others, but these represent the net losses. So at San Mateo, there's a net loss of 5. Since the September briefing, we've been able to preserve the spots, very critical to many of the businesses on that side of the street, as well as some of the spots on the extreme north end of San Mateo. So because of some of the offsetting, we're down now to a net loss of 5 at San Mateo. Walnut Street, which I apologize, I actually didn't present this back in September, and that was not anything other than my stupid oversight, but there are losses of up to 6 spaces at Walnut due to the fact that Walnut, which used to be a one-way street and used to be allow parking on one side, is now a two-way street, partially to allow access to the new station, and because of that, there is no longer the width to have parking and 2 ways of traffic, so there's a total loss of 6 at Walnut. And as I mentioned, these areas are preserved up at San Mateo. Now, Huntington and First Avenue. So First Avenue, of course, initially we were showing very large losses there. Working with the city, working with the council, we were able to return these spots, parallel spots, that gain back some of those losses. There's still a net loss of 11 as a whole on First Avenue. But just to be clear, the parking spots that are lost are primarily the area immediately up by Melody Toyota, where there is a cul-de-sac, and so the road no longer exists. Or in the case of a few of them, it's this crosswalk. We can't have parking in front of a crosswalk, so we lost a few spots there. And then finally, Huntington Avenue, there's a total loss of 16 at Huntington. Again, the major reason for that is to do with the fact that Huntington now ends earlier than it used to. So for those of you who recall, Canes used to flow at a shallower angle into the avenue, and now it is making a proper 90 to line up with the old Canes alignment. And because of that, we lost 2 spots here. As to the Artichoke Joe's side, it's sort of, we gave up some, we gained some, because basically, as the entrances to the parking lot switched, we lost parking where the new entrance is, but we gained it where the old entrance was. So finally, just reiterated at First Avenue, because this is the one where we've really focused a lot of our efforts since September. These are the parking spaces that are being added. So they'll essentially be parallel type parking spots. They'll be marked with the actual lines as you see downtown. And they will start, this is Pine Street here, so they'll start right where the crosswalk at Pine is and run all the way to the existing cul-de-sac at First Avenue. And I'll turn it back to Clara to continue the presentation.
What's the result of the overall situation what Raphael presented is due to the regulatory requirement by the city on those streets. Is our recommendation to install no parking zones in 3 locations. Eastbound on Walnut Street, southbound on San Mateo, and at the intersection of San Mateo and Huntington Avenue. And I will show you on a summary map. Raphael already explained why is needed parking restriction on Walnut, that now Walnut is 2-way instead of 1-way. On San Mateo is the proposed parking restriction is on at the entrance in the parking lot of the new station, and the intersection at Huntington. The parking restriction is really to the location itself, is in that curve itself in the intersection of Huntington with San Mateo. Those 3 actions are the actions recommended for your approval tonight. I want to summarize and to call to your attention the pending recommendations, which is staff intent to come back, hopefully next council meeting, if not, with some of those items, the following council meeting. And those are 2 items in essence. One is to recommend installation of ADA parking zones in front of the American Legion, and also in front of the property 880 on San Mateo Avenue. Staff already made assessment of the feasibility of installation of those parking, ADA parking restriction at those locations, but due to lack of time for proper public communication for the installation of those type of restriction will be necessary additional time before staff will come back to you for our final recommendation. And also with the special parking district is work already started and is underway to establish the proper boundary of the proposed parking district, and my department will work very closely with the police department to make a final recommendation for your consideration on the boundary and the requirement for the special parking district around the project. And the third and the last item for your information tonight is I just want to call your attention to some of the most sensitive area of the project, which will be require further monitoring, and it's not our recommendation or assumption at this time, but a further action will be needed. Then staff will come back with further recommendation. And those are intersection at San Mateo and Walnut. As you recall, initially the station was designed to have the main entrance on Walnut, and that's why initially it was recommended as part of the project to install that stop sign on San Mateo and Walnut. Due to the change of the entrance of the parking facility for the station is a difference requirement and difference warrant for that location. And installing right now the stop sign at that location may be even further impact the north San Mateo traffic being so close to San Mateo. Reason why staff does not recommend at this time installation of the permanent stop sign at that location, but jointly with PD, staff will monitor the situation. If later on we'll follow with a warrant study and we'll see if any changes are necessary. The same situation on those newly created fine parking spot on San Mateo, close to the intersection southwest corner of San Mateo and San Bruno intersection. Some concern was expressed that those parkings are, even if that intersection was widened, maybe they are too close, those parking spots, to the intersection, and will have a negative impact on the movements, right turn movements on at that intersection. At this time, staff recommendation is not to implement any restriction and to leave the parking at that location, but staff will monitor the situation. If any action will be needed, then, if you can go to the next slide, and then will be our intent to come back. And the next two items really are only just for your information that as part of this project also additional 2 crosswalks were installed. Now First Street will become a dead-end street, and at the end of that street will be a crosswalk. Is no action needed by you, but is for your information and that at this time. And also at Sylvan, the same will be a crosswalk at that location, but no action is needed from you at this now. It's just for your information only. Those were the summary traffic-related issues around the project. And if you have any questions, certainly Rafael has more detailed information and understanding of the project, and both of us will try to answer any question what you might have.
Okay, any questions of staff at this time? Ken?
If I could, and yeah, everything's very clear and very thorough from what our experience has been in the last couple months. One thing that when we were out and did the field study on San Mateo Avenue by the train station, some of the business owners were very open to wanting to consider limited time parking on the east side of San Mateo Avenue because of the fact that, because now that there's commuters, you know, that on-street parking that we took away and then now we're preserved is going to be at a premium. And so we need to either implement some sort of, you know, parking plan or have limited time parking to discourage commuters from, you know, from parking there. And also from discourage businesses from taking those spots for, you know, 72 hours.
Staff heard those comments and also those suggestions, and those will be included in our discussion during the consideration for the special parking district for that area.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Through the chair, I just wanted to make sure that some of the concerns that were raised last time, as far as notification, as far as everybody being on the same page, the businesses having an understanding when things were happening, how they were happening, why they were happening. To Ken's comment too, as far as the green zone, I think that has been something because there is, as was where the old site was, we had parking concerns as well. So obviously what's there is just going to be worsened because of the amount of traffic and the businesses that are there. And so I also wanted to make sure that the green zone is, because the question was asked, so I just want for clarification, the green zone in front of the market is preserved, is there, that is not changing.
Correct.
Because obviously I think that was detrimental to the business when they had nowhere to park. So I think I just want to make sure we don't repeat a path that obviously had a lot of concern by the businesses in that area, and I can't blame them. Parking is as a premium. I think they're afraid of what traffic is going to be brought forward. So how long do you see these special considerations being brought forward to the council? What's that time frame to bringing that back for our review?
Tonight, really, our intent was to give you a final situation, how is known by us at this time, and this is the final situation. Those two locations for blue curb or ADA curb will be brought back. It's our intent to come back hopefully next council meeting. And that is our intent today. On the parking district, probably will take a little bit longer, that many items and issues will need to be considered. Some of the business owners even raised the possibility to enter the city to start and try to negotiate some agreement with JPB to provide additional parking in their parking and some other favorable consideration due to the impact of the project. And all of those issues will be incorporated, those special consideration for time parking or dedicated parking, special parking will be part of the discussion for the special parking district. And certainly our intent is to speed up the process. Our initial recommendation was to experiment first to see how the opening of the new station, what impact that will have. But lately, staff heard more and more urgency about starting the process and to have something in place sooner and later. And it's our intent to do our best to come back as soon as possible for your consideration.
Anyone else? Mr. Rico?
Robert Rico, 7th Avenue. Just two questions. I wasn't able to get by 880 San Mateo Avenue. That currently does not have a blue zone. And what kind of business or residence is that is requesting? I'm not saying I'm against it, but I don't know what the the need for a blue is until I know who it is. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I can answer that question?
Sure.
That is a request. That is the only only residential dwelling on that block, and it happens to be rented to a family with a 3-year-old with cerebral palsy. And so I'm sure that would be taken in consideration, and the blue zone may go with, with the occupant. So,
Okay.
but those will be discussed. Thanks for asking.
Just for, in addition to your comment, based on our procedure, ADA parking is a special consideration and is tied to a certain yearly fee exactly for that reason. And each resident who apply for has to be responsible for renewing on yearly basis exactly for that reason, that if you say difference rental or somebody else will reside at that location, then that special preserved parking will go away.
And if I could, the discussion about limited time parking on that street and possibly a parking permit might be in lieu of a blue zone. The concern, not only for this family but also for the business owners, is to be able to have, as fair use of on-street parking, and not have to be fighting with the new user, which is potentially the commuter.
Any other questions? Action by the council?
Is this a resolution? Yes. Through the chair, I'd like to introduce a resolution.
Okay.
Councilmember Ibera.
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar. Aye. Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye.